And David is based in Schleswig Holstein, and he will talk about bioacoustic surveying.
Thank you, Val. Okay. Just like to say before we start, thank you for letting me present today. I'm presenting the preliminary results for the bioacoustics fieldwork we did last year. We will be greatly repeating and enhancing our study this year, based both on what we did last year and also some of the lessons I've learned the last couple of days. Sorry. Okay. Our work is based at Bluefleschen. These are wildflower compensation meadows, mostly situated in agricultural areas. The purpose of these areas is that when development is unavoidable, say we need to build a new housing area, a new factory, etc., that the companies will pay to have something good for nature done somewhere else. In this case, it's wildflower meadows, like the one you can see on the bottom right. In Schleswig Holstein, at least, these use a mixture of flowers like Phacelia, sunflowers, Trifolium protense, and Barago, amongst a few others. But the sad truth is we don't know how effective they really are, especially for invertebrates, and triply for Orthoptera. Usually when research is done, it's, oh yay, Bombus terrestris, and not our beloved grasshoppers. Of course, studying this is not always easy, especially at the landscape scale, where we want lots of study sites to capture those variations in landscape features. And one thing we're doing to counter that is to use the methods developed by Stuart Newson and Eve Bass in recent years of bioacoustics and machine learning classification. This is in addition to the conventional methods of yellow pan trapping and pitfall trapping we're using for syrphids and carabids, but I've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to focus on the bioacoustics. Yes. Okay. If you're like me, your first concern for using stationary bioacoustic detectors was probably first the cost, because traditionally they cost a lot of money, up to 500, even 1,000 euros for a single bioacoustic detector. But that's no longer the case. Recent developments, such as the Audiomoth, you can see one just here, very small, very lightweight, and very rugged. These cost just 80 euros a piece. I know it's tawdry, we'd say in English, to talk about money for science, but we all have limited research budgets, and I fear that won't be changing anytime soon. The other issue is that analyzing this data can drive our poor undergraduate students to insanity, no matter how hard we bribe them with chocolate. For example, just one of our detectors deployed for 6 weeks produced 40,000 different recordings. And if you want to do that at the landscape scale, it's not realistic, which is where machine learning comes in. We've taken a slightly different approach to Dr. Stowell. We're using the Tada Reader software developed by Eve Bass, which lets us build our own reference sound databases and train the random forest algorithm based on specific sound features, which is on the next slide. I didn't time that correctly, and train to deal with noise. To answer our actual landscape question, we used high-resolution satellite data, Copernicus, to detect semi-natural habitats within a 750-meter buffer of each study point. So you can see here we've got a 5-meter resolution data set on Canucks, hedgerows, forest edges, heathland, and other interesting habitat types. We had 20 study sites in northern Germany. Actually, we had 37 total, but only 20 of them with Audiomoth. And we also assessed the degree of habitat fragmentation. We used the mesh index. It's a little counterintuitive there. So the red areas are actually less fragmented than the blue areas, which just shows that I should learn how to invert a color ramp in QGIS. Yep. Okay. I programmed the Audiomoths similar to Dr. Newson's original study. I focused on dawn, then midday, dusk, and overnight to capture the peak Orthoptera and bat activity times, because we're doing bats as well. As you can see from this input, we're training it to recognize individual sound events. This was for mollusks, Cortipus mollusks. For the reference database, because obviously we go in with nothing, we took species-labeled sound files from the Orthoptera species file, some from Xenocanto and GBIF. And based on, after that, I used a rather ugly, it was a caveman solution to the problem of very few records. I used the few records we have, ran a classifier on my Audiomoth data, and it would go, okay, not very specific. These 100 files might be Cortipus bigutulus. I checked those 100 files myself, and when it was correct, I put them back into the classifier, and it gets better at detecting them and better at splitting the noise. It's an ugly solution and a time-consuming one, but it's working. And that's what we've got 500 cans of Red Bull later. These are the species where it's working. There are also some more species which are still in progress, and off the record, don't hold me to this, I'm hoping to have it for 30 species by the end of the study next year. On a less positive note, I haven't yet detected a significant difference, a significant relationship between habitat fragmentation or semi-natural habitats and Orthoptera species richness. As you can see, it varied a lot though. One site had nothing, but then that site was also quite poor for bees and Syrphidae. I think that's more to do with the pesticide load in the nearby agricultural field, but that's something we'll analyze this year. 1 or 2 sites were absolutely heavenly, with 11 and 12 species. Interestingly, these sites were also very good for bees, and the preliminary results for the syrphid flies were also very good. But yeah, and the classifier also worked very well for bats, which we believe shows that the method can be used for cooperating between entomology departments and the bat people in the office next door. So we can share budgets. Again, I know it's not something we like to talk about, but, and yeah, there's a great potential for cooperation of this method. Our next step will be to expand our study. We have funding for at least 9 more sites, and we're searching for funding to do all 48 study sites we're doing this year. We've also gained access to 12 BatLogger recorders. These are really, really good recorders, but they're also, you know, if you want one, you need to sell an internal organ. We hope to find out exactly how much better these high-end recorders are, and hopefully improve our Audiomoth methodology a bit for future scientists. We will upload all new recordings we get from the Audiomoth to Xenocanto and include in supplementary material for scientists to use. And I'm going to say when, be confident. When, hopefully, we pass peer review, I'm also going to write a less formal series of vignettes on our methods so they can be repeated easily, and translate them into at least German and Portuguese, hopefully French as well, if my French friend is feeling very kind and is willing to help me. Hint, hint. We will, of course, continue to search for new recordings. Hint, 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 if anyone has some. And we will compare with the results for the syrphids, bees, and the botanical results, which I should have mentioned earlier, to look for patterns. We hope this means we can make concrete recommendations to the Bundesamt für Naturschutz, the German Nature Ministry, so they can optimize their species mix for the wildflowers and the placement of these wildflower areas. So by simulating different scenarios based on our results, we can say, okay, more large blue fleshen, fewer large blue fleshen, or more smaller blue fleshen. And there's probably something I'm forgetting. No, that's it. That's our reference list. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Klaus Rieder for the advice he gave me last year, Dr. Stuart Newson for the same reason, and our landowners for their kind permission to work on our sites, and for taking the effort to make these blue fleshen. Thank you very much again for listening.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. I think you will be happy when the Orthoptera will be uploaded to Xenocanto. You can use the open records, of course.
Oh, yes.
It would be good for you.
Most definitely.
We have some time for 1 or 2 questions. Somebody?
Thank you very much for the very interesting talk. Brigitte Gottsberger here. I just wanted to ask if you somehow have connection to Helsinki, the Life Plan project, which is taking place, and they also have the Audiomoth recorders, and they spread this in 150 different sites all over the world and are recording. And I know now that they are trying to make some machine learning on bird recordings, but probably not far more so, because it's a very big project. And I'm just thinking about would be nice to contact them somehow, or...
Oh, most definitely. Thank you for... I hadn't heard of them before you said, but yeah, potentially yes. We're always eager to speak with fellow Audiomoth enthusiasts. I think, to be honest, that's the biggest advantage of this is it enables studies with 150 recorders, where using BatLogger, I cannot, not to sound harsh about BatLogger, it's amazing, but it lets us do studies like that, which were impossible before. So I'll definitely contact them. Thank you.
Just a practical question. How do you install them? Can you just put them on the ground, or have you the Audiomoth?
Ah, yes. What I did is okay, I should have gone into more detail, I think. At each site, I've got a set of nesting traps on a pole, a yellow pan trap, a yellow funnel, and some pitfall traps. The data for the Orthoptera on the pitfall traps hasn't been analysed yet. So what I did was I attached the Audiomoth to the nesting trap. So it was about 60 centimeters off the ground and relatively sheltered from the rain. Setting them up and programming them is relatively painless and easy. You don't have to worry about, there's a general user interface to set the sampling rate, the times, the time it's running, so it can turn itself off to save battery. But yeah, it's then you just take it to the field and turn it on and hope that it doesn't get knocked over by the same deer.
Thank you very much.